welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network. You can follow us on our YouTube channel as well, at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined occasionally by my football gurus, Paul and Ian. Let's get to it. What's going on, Ram fans? I'm not going to ask how you're doing because I know the answer. That was a painful loss to the Eagles. It was there for the taking, and it's going to take a little while to get over this, but I'm going to focus on the positive. I'm not going to cover this whole game like I typically do, but I'm going to go through the big plays, the game-changing plays, and there were a bunch of them. Some went the Rams' way. Maybe one too many went the Eagles' way. I'll hand out some game balls, and then at the end here, going to get into my 18 observations about the Rams, the state of the Rams, the NFL, some other teams, a lot of little pieces of news trickling in that I want to cover. And I also wanted to take this opportunity to remind all of you that if you want to jump on this podcast with me, we're going to be restarting our Rapping with Ram Fans segments. You want to come on the show, come on the podcast, the YouTube channel, and just talk about how you became a Ram fan. Just a lot of fun conversations we have with Ram fans. And I'm going to have some of our previous guests back on, hopefully. And Paul and I are going to be getting into the draft, assessing the roster. And Ian will be joining us, of course, talking about the way forward for our Los Angeles Rams. Rams franchise is in a pretty good spot. A lot to be happy about. Disappointed for sure, but there are fans of a lot of other franchises that would trade places with us in a heartbeat. And you know what? No matter how down you're feeling about this result and how this season ended, just channel Jared Verse for a moment. It will pump you up. This is what he had to say after the game. I don't ever want to feel like this again. I don't want my teammates to feel like this again. I don't want to look in their eyes and see anything but pure bliss and pure happiness. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen again. Jared Verse is the man. Let's go through these big plays of the game. I think I have 15 or 16 here. The first one, of course, on the Eagles' first possession, Jalen Hurts takes off for 44 yards in the touchdown. And the second big play, as it turned out, was Jake Elliott missing that point after. So the Eagles only lead 6-0 at that point. On the Rams' first scoring drive, Kyren converted a 4th and 1. I count that as a big play. And then Barkley for 72 yards. Yeah, that's a little bit of a big play. In the second quarter, 2nd and 1 from the Rams' 37, a deep pass to A.J. Brown. I think it was going to be inside the 5, might have been like the 2, but he basically drops it. That was going to be a crushing catch. And they end up coming up empty on that drive, punting it back to the Rams. And how about that Stafford to Demarcus Robinson play? Robinson tearing the ball away from the Eagles defender. This is right before halftime for 48 yards. Rams were set up in the red zone, but Havenstein held on first down, and the Rams ended up settling for a field goal. Seems to be a recurring theme for our Rams. They get a first down in the red zone, and they either take a loss or a 5-yard penalty, a holding call. Seems like it happened a lot this year. My next big play, Stafford to Cooper Kupp for 30 yards, and then Kyren for 30 yards on the ground. Let's just combine them into one big play, shall we? 60 yards on 2 plays, but then Stafford and Kyren mess up the handoff, and kind of the same deal, set up for a score, shoot themselves in the foot, and that one was on Stafford. Rams settle for a field goal. So 2 big plays could have led to a touchdown, 1 messed up handoff, and it ends up just being 3 points. There is that big play, Hurts to Goddard, when Quentin Lake slipped for 31 yards. That led to an Eagles field goal. Eagles had 2nd and 10 from the Rams 22. Hurts hit Goddard again to the Rams 3, but Becton was downfield illegally, and that's why they had to settle for the field goal there. Another big play, Ethan Evans. He was spot on all game, punts it down to the Eagles 4, and that led to the ensuing sack by Neville Gallimore. Rams pick up 2 cheap points there. And then of course, another big play for the Eagles. Seems like the Rams' big plays did not measure up to the Eagles' big plays. First play of the fourth quarter, Kyren Williams fumbles, and the Eagles turn that into a field goal. And another big play, another fumble. Nolan Smith knocks the ball out of Stafford's hands. The Eagles recover, take it back to the Rams 38. Could have led to a touchdown, but after the fumble, 4th and goal at the Rams 1, a false start on Lane Johnson pushes them back, and they have to settle for a field goal. So Eagles shot themselves in the foot a few times as well. And then another big play. Rams' big play is just not measuring up here. Barkley for 78 yards and a TD. But another missed point after by Jake Elliott, and yeah, that is a big play. It could have turned out to be the biggest play of the game, but on the Rams' final scoring drive, no signature play, but 3rd and goal, Stafford to Colby Parkinson, and the Rams are in a position to win this game if they can get a stop, and they do. A sack of Jalen Hurts. They get the ball back. Big pass play to Puka Nacua for 37 yards, and they're set up to win this game and go to the NFC Championship, but Jalen Carter gets the sack, puts the Rams up against it, and they can't convert on 4th down, and the Eagles win. Now, I went through that pretty fast, just trying to highlight how many big plays there were in this game. The momentum shifts back and forth throughout. Rams hanging on, sticking around, just can't close the deal at the end. Before we move on, I'm going to hand out some game balls. I'm going to give one to Matthew Stafford. Almost did it, almost brought us back, put the team on his shoulders there for a bit. Did have a bad play or two, but Matthew Stafford was not the reason we lost this game. My second game ball goes to Ethan Evans. Man, now I don't know where he stands in punter rankings. I don't really care. All I know is he's been elite over the last several weeks. And I'm going to give a game ball to our secondary, mainly the cornerbacks, the pass coverage. Pretty much took away those 2 receivers. Now, I don't know if it was because Jalen Hurts wasn't feeling it with the weather and such, but regardless, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith were pretty much non-factors. And the pass rush, a game ball to the pass rush, another 7 sacks. Neville Gallimore and Jalen McCullough pitching in too. Back in a second with my 18 plus observations. Got a lot to talk about, going to be all over the place. Looking ahead, not backwards. Well, we'll look a little bit backwards, but mostly what's going on in the NFL and where the Rams head from here. Okay, don't keep count here because I'm going to try to, but I'm probably going to mess it up. First observation, it is a done deal. The Rams will be drafting 26th. The last place 49ers will be drafting 11th, the Cardinals 16th, and the Seahawks 18th. And remember, the Rams don't have a second round pick, so that's a bit of a bummer. But they do have Braden Fisk. My second observation, yes, I am fully aware Tyler Higbee was wide open on that play where Stafford got sacked at the end. Would have been the potential game-winning touchdown on that play. Jalen Carter coming in unblocked, though. I just don't want to talk about it. I'm done with it. My third observation, trying to give you a lift here, as big a bummer as this was losing this game, let's put things in perspective. We've represented pretty well in 2 straight playoffs. We've been to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them in the last 6 years. We have a ferocious young defense, and we have some brilliant people leading this organization. It's a lot to be happy about. My fourth observation, get this. Someone shared this on X. Man, I'm sorry, I really try to give credit, but I forget who it was. With the Commanders advancing to the NFC Championship, the Cowboys are now the only team in the NFC that has not played in an NFC Championship game this century. Got to go back to 1995. My fifth observation that kind of annoyed me, one of the headlines and the main gist of the story was that the boys from California couldn't hang on to the ball. That really wasn't the problem. It was that we weren't recovering the ball when it was on the ground. The ball hit the turf 5 times, counting Cooper DeJean's muff. Jalen Hurts had a fumble, Matthew Stafford 2, Kyren Williams 1. The Eagles recovered 4 of the 5. Now, I know Kyren Williams has taken a lot of heat. We talked about it last night on the roundtable. Is fumbling a problem with him? Well, obviously it is. It's just a matter of magnitude. So I looked into the actual stats, see how he stacks up against some other running backs. He's probably in the top 5 or 6 as far as fumbling. Ramondre Stevens of the Patriots fumbles every 29 carries this past year. Breece Hall, once every 34 carries. Aaron Jones, once every 51 carries. Tyron Tracy, the Giants running back, once every 38 carries. James Conner, once every 47 carries. And then Kyren Williams, once every 63 carries, or once every 2 or 3 games. Coming up close behind with 4 fumbles apiece, Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor, once every 75 carries. And by the way, Josh Jacobs did have a fumble in the playoffs as well. Now, the difference between Kyren Williams and most of these guys is the TDs, the productivity. 14 TDs. Josh Jacobs is only one close. He actually had one more, 15. Taylor had 11. Most of these other guys do not have a nose for the end zone like Kyren Williams. And here's another stat I pulled off of X. All 4 playoff games this past weekend, the losing team had more yardage. I think this is my 8th observation. Eagles offensive tackle Jordan Mailata. He was talking a little bit of crap about the Rams and the Vikings, saying he was mad at the Vikings making the Rams pass rush look so good. He maybe is a little bit madder now. I think Verse beat him straight up at least once. Rams come up with another 7 sacks against supposedly the best offensive line in football. And it probably is. But if it is, man, got to be really excited about the Rams pass rush moving forward. And remember, this was without Braden Fisk for better than half of the game. And speaking of Verse, hey, give him credit. He talked crap about the Eagle fans, circled the stadium before the game, waving and saying hi to them, taunting them a little bit. And then he came through with a really good performance. So good for him. He is a special player and a special personality. The endorsement possibilities with this guy through the roof. My 9th observation, if I were to do power rankings, I right now would have the Bills as my number 1 team, and I'd probably have the Ravens at number 2, considering that they had a shot to tie my number 1 team on the road, but for a dropped 2-point conversion pass. And after that, I'd probably have the Commanders and Eagles. And where do you put the Chiefs? If they get these home games and they don't make mistakes, yeah, they're pretty challenging to beat. But I don't think they're as good as the Bills, Ravens, and Commanders right now. I really don't. And probably take some heat, especially putting the Commanders above them. But look what the Commanders did in Detroit. Yeah, shoddy defense up there with the Lions, but still, Commanders are a really dangerous team. I would put the Rams right behind the Chiefs, though. That performance on the road in the snow. After beating Minnesota, beat Buffalo this year, beat Minnesota twice actually. The Ravens are probably the best team out of the playoffs. The Rams right behind them. My 10th observation, reiterating what I said last night, the Rams had 7 sacks, 5 by rookies. My 11th observation, this was actually posted by Football Forever on X. Jared Verse was clocked at 21.6 miles per hour, chasing down, or at least trying to chase down, Barkley. That is faster than Xavier Worthy was timed all year. That's the Chiefs' electric wide receiver. Verse posting a faster speed than Worthy did all year. Pretty amazing. I think we're up to observation number 12, looking at the Rams' schedule next year, the 2025 path to the playoffs. Got to get at least 3 wins in the division. 4 would be ideal, and I think they will. They'll get 3 at least. Their home games, the Saints, Bucks, Lions, Texans, and Colts. Got to get 3 of them. Got to go 3-2 at least there. That would get them to a minimum of 6 wins. Their road games, got a few they should win. They got the Panthers, Falcons, Eagles, Jags, Titans, and Ravens. Eagles and Ravens will be tough, obviously, but we need to get 4 of those. Now, if you only get 3 of them, you pick up an extra win in the division, pick an extra interconference home game, you get to 10 wins, and that's what it's going to take. Remember, they have the first place schedule. 49ers have the last place schedule. So good chance the 49ers are going to come away with the division title next year, perhaps. but they got a lot of figuring out to do. I'm not handing them the title yet, but it's going to be a bit of an uphill climb for the Rams. I think they'll get it done. They'll be back in the playoffs next year. And if you're listening closely, yes, the Rams have one more road game than home game next year. And on that home game list, there's really only one team where you have to worry about visiting fans coming in, and that would be the 49ers. We always enjoy having them on board, spending their cash in our stadium. We can deal with it, but most of those other teams, not going to be a big deal. Observation number 13. Here are the rookies that had a role in this divisional round game in Philadelphia. Jordan Whittington, Bo Limmer, Cody Schrader makes an appearance. Joshua Carty, Braden Fisk, Jared Verse, Tyler Davis, Omar Spates, Jalen McCullough, and Cam Kinchens. There's 10 significant roles in this game. And Josh Wallace, not sure what his snap count was, might be able to count him as well. And I'm probably forgetting someone. Pretty impressive, very promising looking ahead. Next up, what is on the Rams to-do list? I posted a poll on this subject, and the two things I didn't include were bringing Matthew Stafford and McVay back. I just want people to stop talking about that. They'll both be back. And I didn't mention Alaric Jackson. We have to get him re-signed. And I think we need to add a cornerback and a wide receiver to the mix, wide receiver especially. And Paul and I will be talking about the wide receiver group in the draft and a little bit of free agency very, very soon. We need to take a breather. And my 15th observation, let's look at the secondary next year. We're pretty solid at the safety position. Kinchens, Curl, Lake, and McCullough all coming back. The cornerback group, remember, we get Darion Kendrick and Trey Tomlinson back, along with Darius Williams, Josh Wallace, and Kobe Durant. And if we want him, Emmanuel Forbes. What we are missing from this group is that elite corner, and maybe it shouldn't be a priority, but it seems like we haven't had one since Jalen Ramsey left. And my 16th observation, I think it is the wide receiver group. This is where we need some help, I think. Coming back, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Jordan Whittington, and Xavier Smith. That is it. Interesting free agents available. T. Higgins, not going to be that stretch the field guy that we need, but gotta love him, probably going to be pretty expensive. And two faster, speedier wide receivers that I've always liked, Greg Dortch and McCole Hardman. They'll both be available. Hardman's productivity has kind of tailed off, but Dortch is a guy that I don't think he has been utilized by the various teams he's played for. Could be a really dangerous receiver if used correctly. And we have to consider, are we going to continue using this system, relying on our wide receivers to be so physical, to contribute in the blocking game so much? It really wears these guys down. We saw it with Kupp, and we're starting to see it with Nacua, something Sean McVay may want to think about. Robert Woods, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, pretty much been a constant for several years now. My 18th observation, we had to expect this. Fans of the last place 49ers were in the house last night on X. One of them said, "You'll never get to 5 rings." Well, it's actually simple math. If you go back to 1995, the last time the 49ers won a Super Bowl, was that before the internet? So that's 0 Super Bowls every 30 years. We're getting 2 every 25. So by my math, by 2075, we will have 6 and the 49ers will have 5. So there you go. I think I'm up to my 19th observation here. Speaking of the 49ers, Brock Purdy, pretty good data on him. 23-13 as the team's quarterback in the regular season, 4-2 in the playoffs, and now we're seeing people projecting he could get a $300 million contract. And you know what? Fine, go for it. He's solid. Maybe he's earned it. If I'm a 49er fan, though, I'm not excited about it. This team has some other issues they have to deal with. A lot of guys going to be going out the door. And if this is true, they're going to be saddled with some giant salary cap hits for their quarterback. A quarterback that I think has a ceiling, and we may have already seen it. Can they win a Super Bowl with him? Well, I suppose. They do win one every 30 years or so. And speaking of quarterbacks, my 20th observation, are the Lions in a predicament? Has Goff hit his ceiling? Are both their coordinators leaving? Just learned Ben Johnson is leaving for the Bears. He'll be their new head coach. And Goff, I love the guy. He's no Matthew Stafford. He's very good. But there are situations where, you just feel like he's not going to get it done. And this past weekend was another one. And my 21st observation, I'm just going to tell you, I feel really, really bad for Mark Andrews. I hate to see that happen. Dropping that pass, the 2-point conversion. There's a handful of receivers that I'd probably get a kick out of it if that happened to them, receivers or tight ends, but not Mark Andrews, not 99% of the players in the NFL. Really sucks. Hopefully he'll bounce back from that. And my last observation, what is the power structure in the two conferences right now, moving forward anyways over the next few years? And my special assistant pinged me on this, and these are his thoughts really, but I totally agree. In the AFC, I feel like it's pretty much about the Bills and the Chiefs. Well, not really about the Bills and the Chiefs. It's about Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, right? With a little bit of Lamar Jackson sprinkled in. I would take these guys over the field as far as who's going to get to the Super Bowl out of the AFC in the next 3-4 years. It's going to be these two guys and maybe Lamar Jackson. Could the Texans rise to the occasion? Maybe the Colts, Broncos, I suppose, the Chargers. But my money's on Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and like I said, a dash of Lamar Jackson. In the NFC, completely different. There's going to be 2 random teams playing in the NFC Championship game every year. I feel like it could be the Packers, Lions, Vikings, Eagles, Commanders, Tampa Bay and Atlanta. One of them's going to emerge from a weak division, win a couple of games, and there you are. Rams, 49ers, Seahawks, even the Cardinals could all make a run to the NFC Championship game. A much different story in the NFC. I'm predicting the Rams will get there and probably to the Super Bowl one more time in the next 2 years. We just missed it this year. Not going to let it slip away next year. Got a good feeling moving forward. That's all I got. I do want to remind you, if you want to join me for a Rams fan rap session, send me an email at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. We'll figure it out. Low key, lots of fun. You don't have to study. You don't have to know anything. All you have to be is a Ram fan, and we'll have fun talking about the history of the Rams, your favorite games, favorite players, all that good stuff. Do not hesitate. Please reach out to me, and we will do it. It's a fun segment. We really enjoy doing it here. And next up for Paul and I, we'll be checking out the wide receivers in the draft, and Ian should be coming back with an orchestrated Rams segment, film studies from the Rams-Eagles game. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.